Yo, let's just get this goddamn thing started. It's been too long. Um, we're gonna play the usual, play the greatest hits. Gonna react to a little bit of this whole chorus situation. If you guys have heard of it, maybe not. Apparently, it's supposed to be a bad thing, but I mean, shoot, if chorus wants to swing some bones my way, I'm here for it. Let me blow out a candle real fast, okay? I don't want you to hear this. That was like the clumsiest way to blow out a candle I've ever done before. I blew it out and like the smoke went right into my eyeball as soon as I did it. All right, well let's get into it. Last time I was kind of streaming, I think I was going over I was looking for a new place to move to, and I pretty much found a new place. I'm excited. It looks really good to me. It's in a nice area, I think. It's a good location. It's kind of centrally located between a bunch of like spots that I like to be in. Right now I kind of live in the big city, and it gets a little hectic. Whereas where I'm moving to is a little bit more like suburban, a little bit more calm, but it's still not too far if I want to go to the city and hang out for the day or on the weekends. Alright, what the hell? Oh, I forgot I was on this mission. So last time on Dragon Ball Z, we were doing this diplomatic mission. We saved these politicians who are from the unincorporated, unaffiliated, radical, enlightened centrist worlds that found out the hard way that, actually trying to be neutral doesn't work out so good because neutrality is actually just it's a win for the bad guys. The bad guys will take advantage of your neutrality. The good guys won't. And that's the illusion that I think enlightened centrists roll with. But if you allow the bad guys to take over, the bad guys are just gonna start fucking bullying you at that point. You're only useful idiots to them for a time being. Alright, so we got this video by Hutch. The Taylor Lorenz new Wired article is widely misleading. Now, I've heard a thing or two about this. I kind of have my own formulated ideas on this already. And I'm not really super familiar with Hutch's content. I've heard his name before, but I don't really know him. So I'm kind of curious because he had like a decently long video. I wonder, I mean, when he says it's misleading, I wonder what he means by that.
Essentially, if they
I
even
wonder if there's any validity to that.
as acknowledged that they were part of the program or that Chorus existed. No. Here's a video of someone named Heidi who's in the
Well, Jesus Christ, this video is fucking loud, isn't it?
cohort explaining what Chorus is and that she's joining it on November 20th.
By the way, I gotta say that I do not like these videos. This is like a TikTok like format of doing things. I hate these videos where you got like someone's head and it's so obnoxious they're like right up to the front of the camera and they're like, oh, this here and this, and their head's like floating around like a disembodied ghost. Like it's just so sloppy, and it's kind of corny and cheesy too. I'm not feeling it.
2024. Here is the Chorus
Here's the Chorus website, and their head's like floating around. It's zooming in, it's zooming out. Their fingers are like dart all over the fucking place. They're like, oh, let me point at this thing that I can't see. Oh, it's over here. It's not her fault, because I know there's a popular format on TikTok, but I can't stand it.
I don't understand journalism. The idea that these people were being paid to not talk about Gaza is not based on anything. And yet when you
Not based?
Ryan's mentions, that's what they're going with. The very existence of her.
This is probably a bit of a hot and popular take with some people, but I got to say this, like, if you're obsessed with Gaza and all you talk about is Gaza, like, here's my big frustration with that. I've never been a fan of the Netanyahu regime. I've always thought that Netanyahu represented like a nationalist. I don't like nationalists in general, but it's like every nationalist movement turns into some extreme bullshit or some corrupt bullshit, and there's too much of a pattern there. But anyways, and when they first started the war, I thought like, okay, the way they're going about it, it seems like they're a little bit too, I don't know, like not as considerate of the locals as they could be, right? But then I saw some data that said that the civilian casualty rate was like lower than most modern conflicts, and it made me think to myself like, oh, okay, you know what? They actually are probably mitigating civilian casualties, but their rhetoric is probably giving the opposite impression, right? There's a lot of like right-wing nationalist leaders that feel like they have a need to like talk tough and talk down to people. And I think some people think that's innocuous, like, oh, it's just words, right? Look at the actions. But the problem with those words is those words they wind up galvanizing like a certain mentality around things. And so now you have, I think, since Trump came into office, like, I think it is fair to say at the very least that they're ethnically cleansing Gaza. That seems to be their stated intention. I don't know. I'm amenable to the idea that it's a genocide now at this point. But I don't really know if that's truly the case or not. Um, and the way I see it, it's like, okay, like all of that rhetoric over the years primes your population for that kind of behavior, right? So even if you like 5 years prior are like, oh, it's just, they're just talking tough, they're just big words, right? Well, 5 years later down the road, it's like, oh, well, all the people of the civilization now have, not all of them, but like a lot of them think it's okay, think it's normalized because that mentality, the words or the mentality behind the rhetoric winds up getting normalized over time, and I think that's a connection a lot of people don't really see a lot. Um, we're off to Balmorra. And but the thing is like if you're in the United States and you're still like obsessed with Gaza to where the Gaza situation is like your number one thing that you talk about or think about, you can't see the forest for the trees. You've lost the ability to see the forest for the trees. I was trying to say that word earlier. I recently learned because this entire time I thought the word was amendable, which they're very similar words, right? You might not think it is, but to amend something is to change something, right? So you can use amendable to say like this is something that's capable of being changed, right? But the way I was trying to use the word, the more accurate term is amenable, which is like open to like to being influenced, open-minded, right? It's a little bit more precise. But the crazy thing is like those words, they are phonetically so close together. And then even their meaning is not that far apart. So it's kind of crazy. Anyways, okay, so anyways, what I was saying with the Gaza situation is the way I look at it, to use an analogy, is like if you had someone who, like, let's say you and a few people are in a house, and the house is literally catching on fire while you're inside of the house. And meanwhile, one of your friends, like, you're yelling at the friend, like, "Hey, like, grab some water, grab some, like, blankets. We need to, like, put out this fire. We need to cover the fire. We need to grab the fire extinguisher, right?" But your friend is over there, and they're like focused on something else, and you're like, "Hey, like, bro, like, the house is on fire, bro. Like, I need you to help us. Like, what the hell? Like, this shit's crazy right now." And they're like, okay, but like there's a dog over there across the street, and the dog is wandering around, and I'm wondering if it has a home, or if it, if it's lost, right?" And it's like yes, the dog wandering around the neighborhood by itself is potentially an issue. Maybe because the dog might be a danger to others, maybe because you're worried about the dog, got loose, and its owners are looking for it. But it's like the house, like where you're standing right now, that house is on fire. And so in terms of like priority and practicality, right now in that moment, you don't have the luxury of like having your focus on this dog over here and helping this dog out. Because if you don't help out, like, the situation you're in right now, not like the house is going to burn down with you in it. You're going to die, and your ability to help that dog, you're not going to be able to help that dog in that situation, right? And I look at the Gaza situation the same way. A lot of people I know are like laser focused, like Gaza is their number one issue. Meanwhile, the country that they're living in, they're losing their rights, they're losing the representation. It's getting taken over by like an authoritarian, right wing government or whatever. And I look at them and I think to myself, like, do you not realize that your ability to even help the people of Gaza, you are getting further and further away from being able to affect that, the more that you don't focus on the house that's burning down around you, right? Um, and if you do not prioritize the house that's currently burning down around you, if you don't prioritize that, you're not only going to lose on the Gaza situation, you're not only going to, like, it's not, that situation's going to get worse for you, but you're also allowing your own situation to get worse. And if you let your own situation deteriorate to such an extent, you're not going to be able to help anybody. And that is like the biggest takeaway. I got to figure out a better way to like rhetorically package that idea, in like a much more punchy, pithy, like simple way of conveying that idea, because I've had a hard time really explaining this or expressing this. But that's really my issue with the people that are obsessed with Gaza. It's like it made some sense like a year ago. But now at this point, you don't have the luxury because you've allowed the house around you to catch on fire. And you screaming and yelling about the dog across the street, right? And I get it, it's not a dog across the street. I understand, like, I'm using an analogy. You screaming and yelling about the issue that's going on across the street, like, do you understand how out of touch you are? Do you understand how separated, like how separated you are from the reality of the situation that you are currently in and that they're in? You cannot help them if you yourself are getting, oppressed by your own government. Um, and I wish a lot of the people on the left would understand that. Like, you have to understand. There has to be a point where people point this out to them. You have to have an understanding that all those things that you care about the people in Gaza, you care about trans issues, you care about college debt, you care about I don't know, universal healthcare, you care about all these things. And the thing is, like, because we've allowed the situation to deteriorate to the extent that it has in the United States with like this authoritarian takeover, all of those issues, whether you like it or not, all of those issues now, in a very real practical sense, all of those issues, whether you like it or not, all of those issues are like all on the back burner now. You have absolutely no fucking ability to effectuate any change on any of those issues that you care about. You have to address the house burning down around you first, right? It's an order of operations thing. It's like it's like these aren't great analogies. I have to think of a better way of phrasing this, but like it's like you looking outside of your window and you're in a car. You're looking outside your window and you see a guy harassing a woman, right? Whatever. Um, you physically cannot do anything about that situation without you opening the door to your car first. And the situation we're in the United States is we just literally cannot do anything about healthcare, about trans rights, about Gaza, about any of these things. We physically, literally just can't fucking do anything about those things because the first thing that we have to do is we have to remove the obstacle that's in front of us that will keep us from doing anything else. This obstacle is not only keeping us from tackling any of these other issues, this obstacle that's in front of us is actively, you know, harming us and degrading our potential to do anything positive, period. You have to understand the order of operations there. You cannot tackle those other problems without tackling that problem that's in front of you. And that problem in front of you, the more you let it metastasize, it's pulling you further and further and further and further away from those other problems that you want to tackle. And that's why you have to deal with this one first. You don't have an option. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense, okay?
In this program completely annihilates the premise that this group was paying people to toe the party line and not talk about Gaza. An article called A Dark
It's my understanding that from Taylor Wren's article, there wasn't actually any evidence provided that Chorus was dictating what the content creators are supporting. There was no evidence that she showed that they were actually dictating what they were allowed to say or anything, right? And now I didn't read the whole article. I saw some excerpts. I saw other people reading it. I could be wrong about this, but it was my impression that in her article she either directly said this or she insinuated it or speculated that it's the case that Chorus was dictating what people could say. And that seems at the very least to be the takeaway that a lot of people on the left have read that article, right? But it's worth pointing out that that was never established. That was never established, right?
Money Group is secretly funding high-profile Democratic influencers. An initiative aimed at boosting Democrats online offers influencers up to $8,000 a month to push the party line. All they have to do is keep it a secret and agree to restrictions on their content.
Okay, see, this is actually in the article. I couldn't remember for sure if she was just explicitly saying this, but she is making the case here that they are dictating what you're allowed to say, and they're saying that you're towing the party line, right? When they say you're towing the party line, they're saying that you're towing the Democratic Party line. That's what that reads as. And so there's two misleading or unsubstantiated, unvalidated claims here. The first one is that Chorus is basically dictating what the content creators supporting are able to say. That's one claim that is not substantiated. The second claim, it's a related claim, but the second claim is that what they're trying to get the content creators to talk about is to toe the party line, the Democratic Party, right? That also is not substantiated for two reasons. Number one is nowhere in the article does she ever substantiate that, at least to my knowledge, that Chorus is telling content creators what to say. That's number one. Number two is she never establishes that Chorus is like working for the Democratic Party. Now, Chorus's politics may be in line with the Democratic Party, right? But that is different from saying that Chorus is like working on behalf of the party or dictating the party line, right? Because, and here's like a nuanced distinction here. It's possible that Chorus may be more like progressive leaning, right? And the Democratic establishment may be a little bit more moderate for their taste. It's possible that while Chorus simultaneously shares a lot of overlap with the Democratic Party, and that's their preferred party compared to the MAGA faction, right? It's still possible that actually Chorus doesn't really want, like, Like even if they aren't telling people what to do, people have their desires, sometimes desires that they keep to themselves. The people who work for Chorus probably have their political biases, their political proclivities, preferences. That doesn't mean that they're having their personal preferences dictate how they run Chorus, right? But they may personally wish that the Democratic Party win over the Republican Party, while simultaneously wanting to shift the Democratic Party to be more progressive, in which case they may not be towing the Democratic Party line, but instead are trying to shift what the Democratic Party line is by putting like influencers and attention and rhetoric out there that shifts the party that way, right? That's why that distinction, it seems like a small distinction, but when you think about it and when you explain it out like I just did, that distinction is it's a very important distinction.
We already.
Is this guy picking his nose? Bro, don't do that. It's probably bad enough myself when I have allergies that are really bad. I'll like my nose will be itchy and I scratch it. I might like do this or like scratch underneath it. And I keep my nose clean, like I blow my nose and everything. But I'm not like digging in my nose. I'm not pulling up mucus or anything. I'm like itching the skin. That's it. Don't pick your fucking nose, bro. Get a tissue or something. That's fucking gross.
Read
Okay.
the article. If you guys are desperate for context, you might want to just like pause the stream or go try to read it while you're watching the stream. But the title kind of sums it up, right?
Okay, I could have misjudged him there. This is like a petty thing, but I don't want to accuse him picking his nose when he isn't. I think he was just doing this, like resting his finger on his nose, which is that something I do? I don't think I do that. I'll do this. I'll do this. You guys have like your little like body movements that you do when like you're in a thinking position. Like mine is I'll do this. Like I'll play with my beard hairs. That's one of them. I also have like the Gendo Ikari. I'll just be here like pensively, just plotting, scheming, doing this whole thing. And then the other thing is I'll just play with my lips for some reason. Call it oral fixation if you want, right? But I'll just, that's interesting. That's a good point.
She is alleging that there's
She's
this
a legend.
dark money group that pays creators to quote.
And here's the thing, like I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. It could potentially be a bad thing, yes, right? But this is something I've been saying for years. It's something that I'm just going to say it. I was the first person that I know of that was saying it. I'm glad all these other content creators started to latch onto it. David Pakman, Destiny and other people. I think even Bosch has talked about this, right? But the liberals, the left or whatever, have needed an organized apparatus, not even necessarily an apparatus, but organization, not just a bunch of different people all like arguing with each other and fighting against each other and doing their own thing, but like coming together to work on a collective political project, right? And so the idea that you have this organization now that's trying to match the AstroTurf on the right, right? Is that ideally what we want? Maybe not, right? But we don't live in an ideal world, and I'd rather not fall to authoritarian right-wing like fascism than to get our hands a little bit dirty. I think it's okay. I think it's fine. I think it's even a good thing in the current moment for us to have an organization that is trying to counter the AstroTurf on the right and give a lot of these like smaller liberal left-wing content creators a chance to kind of get their footing, right? To kind of like kickstart a strong, significant liberal left-wing presence, in the media and online. I think that's a really positive thing.
Push the party line. All they have to do is keep it a secret.
Keep it a buck 50.
Agree to restrictions on their content. There have been several creators that have come out since this article was posted, refuting not one, not two, but all three of those premises. We have several creators that have come out in the last couple days that are.
Now, I have heard people say, and I mean, maybe might be a bit of a valid criticism, that like Taylor Lorenz is making claims, right? And I think from what she says that she's seen these contracts, and that what she's referring to when she says like it basically keeps them from talking about stuff that they want to talk about, or it compels them to say things that they wouldn't ordinarily say. She, at least what I took away from what she was saying, was that she's seen in the contracts where this is the case, right? Now, I think that's, you know, potentially irresponsible. At the very least, like what can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without. If she's going to assert that and not provide any evidence, then I think it's fair for other people to go, well, until you show us any evidence, and I don't really necessarily have a reason to take your word for it, right? So I don't have any game audio coming through there, do I? I'll have to work on that later. It doesn't matter. So that's potentially fair. Oh, is it because the volume on this is like -70? Let's see. Oh, there we go. Why is the volume so low in the game? Jesus Christ. But what some people criticize Chorus for doing was like Chorus, a lot of their members and stuff were saying, no, these claims are false. And it's like, well, okay, why doesn't Chorus just publicly release some of these contract terms to counter these claims that are being pushed against it? Now, is that totally fair? I don't think so, right? Because it's not really fair to demand people, when other people make up stuff and they don't provide any evidence for their claims. It's not really fair to put the onus on the other person to prove their own innocence, right? Sure. Right, but at the same time, it's like, okay, Chorus, like if you have these terms in your contract and you can show very easily and clearly, like, hey, this isn't the case, then why not do that, right? Now, the counterpoint that I've heard from somebody, and I don't know because I didn't really dig into it, and I don't really care to dig into it. I don't think it's important. I think this whole story will drop off the radar in like a week or so. It's probably not worth the investment. But the counter argument was that some of the creators talked about like signing an NDA with Chorus. But I believe what they were saying is that Chorus may have kind of like a reciprocal NDA where they aren't allowed to really talk about the contract that they wrote with the or that they agreed to with the content creator, right? That there's an expectation that the content creator that they signed a contract with has like a reciprocal NDA where it's like, hey, I signed a contract with you guys. You guys aren't really allowed to talk about the contract I signed with you guys. It goes both ways there, right? If that's the case, then it's totally legitimate for Chorus to not be able to really, show the contract either legally or even if not legally, ethically, right? It may not, like, it genuinely wouldn't really be ethical for Chorus to throw their own content creators under the bus who they signed a contract with or an NDA with, right?
They're saying that they don't get paid to push the party line.
Oh my God, it's so hot in here today. Jesus Christ.
There are no restrictions on what they can do.
Jesus Christ, I'm gonna let this run for a minute. I need to open a window. Oh my God. So I don't want to get too specific. I live in the Bay Area. One of the amazing things about moving here is that the weather is like almost perfect like year round. But for whatever reason, I'm curious what the temperature is outside. Maybe it's just because I don't really feel much of a breeze today. But it's kind of freaking hot. What the hell? I have one of the windows open. It's not really doing much. Okay, it says that it's 68 right now, which shouldn't be too bad. I guess maybe it's just my apartment's warm. I don't know why my apartment's so warm. Maybe it's just me. Is there much of a wind? I mean, the wind may not be blowing through specifically where I'm at, I gotta crack this window open though. I'm fucking dying out here. I do not like the heat. I was born and raised in the heat. I have like a lot of family members, friends who talk about, oh, I'd rather have the heat over the cold. No, fuck that. Oh, you know what? I did just stick my hand outside. It's not the temperature difference, not that much cooler outside than it is inside. and there's not much of a breeze. Usually there's a much, where I live, there's usually like a pretty good breeze, but not the case today, unfortunately. So.
There's a few responses
Bro, wait a second,
that
hold
I
on.
watch from various creators. This is
Okay, he's triggering me. He's not picking his nose, but he's doing this. I don't think I've ever seen somebody in like a contemplative pose doing that. Like pinching the tip of their nose. That's very, it's unique, okay? I'll put it that way.
one from a creator named
Just a reminder.
Allie. And if we go to her profile, there's a much longer video talking about the allegations made in this article. David Pakman was named in the article. He responded. Brian Tyler Cohen was named in the article. He responded. So I'm just going to assume that a lot of you guys are familiar with the story. I don't want to actually read the entire story again. We did do that a couple days ago. And on its face, I thought, oh, this doesn't sound great. Now, since the posting of this article, they have issued some clarifying parentheticals. Did I say that right?
I feel like that alone kind of shows either a degree of like disregard, not disregard, there's another word, like negligence. It's either showing a degree of negligence or a degree of like malicious omitting cherry picking information, omitting contextual information, right? That doesn't really bode well with me that they got to issue like clarification of their article, especially you write an article that's salacious like this. Like, did you not anticipate that people would read it this way? It almost makes me seem to me like you wanted people to have that impression, and then you got called out, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I didn't really mean it that way. It's kind of like that whole plausible deniability thing, but the issue is you don't really get away with that if you're like a journalist or a media organization, at least one that's trying to pretend that you have some credibility to yourself.
That are in parentheses. Wilson maintained in a
parentheticals.
I heard that two perspectives are aligned.
Zenith only speaks in private, and the Empire is always watching. There are privacy scramblers throughout this area, relics from a freer time. Switch them on and you will be contacted.
I saw a thread on Reddit today, where someone was mentioning, I guess Tony Gilroy, who's like the director for Andor, got asked like this hypothetical show idea where it's like basically you take, if you watch Andor, you take Clea, you take what's the the girl's name, Mon Mothma's cousin, Val, and Daedra, and you have like a Nazi hunting show where they hunt after the remnants of the Empire. And I was thinking to myself like, oh, that'd be fucking badass, like a Inglorious Bastards, but almost like a crossover between that and like your kind of like female trio, like kind of cliche group that you would have like from like the 90s and early 2000s. Like you had the Powerpuff Girls, you had like Kill Bill, you had like Totally Spies, right? You had Final Fantasy X2, X2, whatever you want to call it. It just seemed like a trope. I was like, you know what? I'm fucking here for it. I think Tony Gilroy was just kind of like, oh yeah, sure, that's a cool idea, I guess, right? But I don't think he was like serious about it. I don't even think it'd necessarily be like his style of show, but like I could be there for it. They could flub it where it's like too corny, where it's like got the Dave Filoni vibes or like the vibes from like oh no, not Kill Bill. What's that? Charlie's Angels. Charlie's Angels is too much cheese. It's too cheesy, right? But if you could pull off where it's like it's got the right amount of grit and it's like Inglorious Bastards with like a little bit of the girl power there, but you're not like leaning into it too much. It's just this happens to be a group of like three women. but they're badass, rather than like trying really hard, like trying too hard. If you could find that like perfect medium, it would actually be fucking badass, right? And like I wouldn't make too much of it. It would be like one quick little spin-off show, maybe one season or something. Not try to make it anything bigger than it needs to be, right? Not put more pressure on that show having to be like more impactful to the larger lore than it needs to be. Because once you start doing that, that's where you go the Dave Filoni route, where it's like, okay, now these characters have to like meet Luke Skywalker or something and be part of like the glorious, Resistance 2.0 or something like that. Whereas like the right way to do it to just be like maybe like a 6-episode little mini series thing. And you just have them like doing their own thing, kind of functioning like little spy group, right? And just like taking down some Imperial remnants and just fucking their shit up, and that's it. You don't need to tie them in with any other characters. You kind of have them doing their own thing. I think having them do their own thing, like separate from like the Resistance or the Rebellion or Luke Skywalker, I think that would be perfect, right?
Post-publication email that creators are free to work with other groups or take on other partnerships outside Chorus program and say whatever they want as part of that work on their own. So there were like 5 of these that were added to the story. I guess Chorus.
Hold on, I need to hear that again because that sounds like a direct contradiction to what it said earlier in the article, right? Can I get higher resolution on this? No, I can't really.
Free to work with other groups or take on other. And did I say that publication email that are in parentheses? Wilson maintained in a post-publication email that creators are free to work with other groups or take on other partnerships outside Chorus program and say whatever they want as part of that work on their own.
Okay, so it's not directly contradicting the previous phrase, right? Here's the nuanced distinction here. What Taylor Renz is alleging is under the contract for the work that they're doing with the funding from Chorus. With that funding, the work that they're doing with Chorus, in conjunction with Chorus, that stuff they have to toe the party line. That's Taylor Ren's claim. Now, this part here is saying outside of the work that you do for Chorus, right? If you want to do work outside of that, if you're not using the funds that Chorus is giving you, outside of that work, you can say and do whatever you want, right? Those two claims are not in contradiction with each other. Now they're not actually technically contradicting each other. However, it is a little bit hard to believe, right? It's hard to believe that Chorus would be looking and wanting and bold enough to try to dictate what the creators of supporting are allowed to say and kind of feeding them lines that they have to toe for the party line. And that Chorus would be willing to do that, but then also allow those creators to work on the side, contradicting the party line, right? It's hard for me to imagine that. It seems to from their perspective, right? If they're going to go that far, why would they allow their creators to just kind of like undermine that whole intent by speaking out again, like contradicting those messages in their downtime? Doesn't really make sense, right? The whole point is that you want that content creator's followers to take their cues from the content creator. But if the content creator is towing the party line on some of the videos and then contradicting the party line in other videos, right? The audience is going to notice that and be like, well, wait a second, are you against the party line? Are you for the party line? Like, you're contradicting. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that?
So there were like 5 of these that were added to the story. I guess Chorus's lawyers got in touch with Wired lawyers, and so they're adding clarifying sentences in parentheses in the article. All right, let's hear from Allie O'Brien.
Hello, I am a leftist that is known for being very critical of the Democratic Party, and I'm a member of a training program called Chorus that teaches political content creators on the left how to grow their platforms and make content creation into a full-time job. I have a slew of receipts to explain why a very fear-mongering article that came out yesterday about how this program works is just very inaccurate, and I think I'm a good person to talk about this because
To be fair, no one answered the initial request for comment. She is actually over here in the replies. If you click on the video and go over here to the replies, she said the reason why she didn't react or respond to the email was that Taylor Lorenz had already written an article that she found like kind of shocking in the claims.
What was I gonna say too? I'm curious if there's any of the creators on this roster of Chorus, affiliated creators who have spoken out about Gaza. Like, I would not be surprised if you could find a handful, right? Because how many people are in the initial cohort? I'm curious. How many creators are in the Chorus cohort? The first cohort. 90. So there's 90 influencers. Am I to believe that out of that 90, not even a single one, not two, not three, and not 10, right, have said anything against the Gaza situation? Really? Really? Am I really going to believe that? Is it really? I mean, granted, I'm not actually going out of my way to figure that out. I mean, how long would that take me, right? But, like, it's just hard for me to imagine. I mean, it's possible, but
that were being made in the article, and so that was her explanation. I think Taylor is on Twitter telling people that Chorus was threatening its creators if they talked to her. I don't want to miscategorize what she said or mischaracterize what she said, but at least in this instance, this Alley creator said her reason was that she felt like Taylor Lorenz had done a hit job on them.
Because I've seen a lot of people afraid that this program is just a way for Democrats to pay people off to blindly defend Democrats on the internet, and I understand the fear because that would be diabolical if it was true. But this is
that's the other easy way to dispute this claim, is to look at, out of all these 90 creators, am I really to believe that these 90 creators, they don't talk about criticisms they have with the Democratic Party? I guess the potential counter argument that the Taylor Lorenz people could say is, oh, but they're only like it's controlled opposition kind of thing. Like, they will only disagree and criticize the party in areas that are not super duper important in order for them to be able to say, hey, look, I did criticize the Democrats, right? But at that point, then it becomes like an unfalsifiable, like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't kind of situation. Man, I gotta be honest, I'm ready to move on from freaking Knights or the Old Republic. The combat is just so unengaging. Right, there's a few games that I had. So, StarCraft has been on my mind, and I mentioned it before, but Kingdom Hearts, and maybe I don't know if I have the time. Maybe City Skylines. But here's the other thing, is that I put a group of friends together to play Killzone 2, or not Killzone 2, Helldivers 2. So I'm going to have to set some time for that, right? And so it's a question of, like, what games do I have first? I think I'm probably only going to be able to really shuffle, like, 2 games at a time. So if I'm playing Helldivers with the friends, it's going to have to be, we either dive into StarCraft or we dive into Kingdom Hearts.
video of me like yelling at the DNC literally yesterday over their refusal to endorse an arms embargo against Israel. I am not one to hold back on criticizing the establishment, but I think I'm useful.
Wait, is this exactly what I was looking for?
People off to blindly defend Democrats on the internet, and I understand the fear because that would be diabolical if it was true. But this is a video of me like yelling at the DNC literally yesterday over their refusal to endorse an arms embargo against Israel. I am not one to hold back on.
Okay, so I mean, this seems like this would contradict Taylor Lorenz's claim, or I guess Taylor Lorenz didn't specifically say Gaza, did she? But it seems to be the takeaway a lot of people had for the criticism of the organization. This would like contradict that impression entirely. Now, she says she has a video from yesterday, so I'm wondering if the timeline actually matches up. Because if that video that she's talking about happens after the release of this article, then it, like, technically it's kind of a meaningless, rebuttal.
on criticizing the Democratic establishment. So I think I'm useful proof that that's not what this program's about. I do feel there's people in this cohort who shill a little bit too hard for the Democrats, but that's a them problem, not a this program problem. Without further ado, let's get into the claims of the article versus my receipts. Okay, so the first main big scary thing that's written into this article is creators told Wired that the contract stipulated they'd be kicked out and essentially cut off financially if they even so much as acknowledged that they were part of the program or that Chorus existed. No. Here's a video of someone named Heidi who's in the cohort explaining what Chorus is and that she's joining it on November 20th, 2024. Here is the Chorus web.
I don't understand this journalism. I don't understand this journalism. How did this, I mean, Wired is they're like a legit news outlet. So I assume they have editorial standards. I assume that stories like these need to pass editorial review before they go live. Because that's a crazy thing to allege. Creators told Wired that the contract stipulated they'd be kicked out and essentially cut off financially if they even so much as acknowledged that they were a part of the program. And then
Yeah, and here's the thing again, too, right? I have to imagine in this case that Taylor Lorenz did not provide evidence for this claim, right? And if it's the case, like this lady saying, that you have content creators in the Chorus cohort who have talked about their association with Chorus, then like you're getting direct contradictions to the claims that Taylor Lorenz was making in her initial article, right? Which really starts to make you think was it just total like bad journalism, negligence, or was there like a malicious desire to misrepresent what was going on here, to like over exaggerate and demonize?
then the next day, there's like fucking 15 creators that are like, what is she talking about? Like showing receipts that they had announced.
Okay, so now you have 15. 15 is significant, right? 15 is what? 15 is 1/6. 1/6. That's a significant amount, right? And that's not to say that the other 5/6 aren't also, you know, people who contradict like the party line and who are, you know, open about their association with Chorus, right? But if you already got 1/6 that have come out and said, hey, we have video evidence that these claims are not true, that's I mean, that looks pretty bad for her reporting, to be completely honest with you.
To their audience or disclose to their audience that they were a part of this program. Okay.
Oh God, I can't see.
If they even so much as acknowledged that they were part of the program or that Chorus existed. No. Here's a video of someone named Heidi who's in the cohort explaining what Chorus is and that she's joining it on November 20th, 2024. Here is the Chorus website that is public facing, anyone can see it, with literal pictures of creators that are in the cohort. In the contract,
That's the other thing too, bro. If you go to their website,
I did go to their website, and yeah, I mean, granted, the content creators they have on there, they look like stock images, but they probably just chose like the most photogenic people that they could find among their cohort or whatever. And you know, they had like professional photography being done and all that. But I mean, that is the other thing, is that the website is not shy about like, hey, like we're doing this, and like here's some of the creators that are working with us. Like the article frames it as if like this is all like a big super secret conspiracy, right? And it's like actually like they're being, for the most part, it seems like they're being pretty open and honest about what they're doing. Because I don't think they really feel the need to like hide too much other than like what is absolutely necessary. Like, yeah, we want to do this. We've been talking about doing this. We're talking about having like a counter voice to what's going on the right. Like, yeah, what's wrong with that, you know? Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? Because that's the other thing that annoys me about this whole story. I feel like you've had people over the years that have said like, hey, look at what the right's doing. The Republicans, they are reaching out to their alternative and younger like media influencers, and those people have like influenced the party over the years, right? The Democrats, like, why aren't they reaching out and connecting and, you know, collaborating with and compromising with these, like, where the energy and the alternative, you know, new age media is at? And then it's not literally a Democratic Party, but now you have like an organization that's trying to like kind of put that kind of infrastructure together, and now it's like, oh, well, actually that's bad now. It's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, right?
so supposedly in this contract it says you can't say that you're a part of the cohort, is what they're calling it, a cohort. Otherwise they'll kick you out of the program. And then you go to the fucking website and they're
just showing you the people, yeah.
A bunch of creators that are in the program. Like How does this logically follow? How does that make any sense? I don't
It
know
doesn't.
what contract she saw, what
It really
provision
just
of the
doesn't.
contracts she saw. I do know that oftentimes with contracts, there's the language can be a little confusing. If this program is so
Yeah, I mean that might be the only thing, but like as a journalist, I expect her to break down the legalese there because he's right in the sense that if you read a contract, sometimes it might, like, how do I put it? It might have like a provision in it that says like, oh, don't talk about your association with Chorus, but like it might be like very specific to like these specific circumstances or in these specific situations, or maybe it might say something like, if you are gonna like talk to like the media about your association with us, like we want to be filled in on that, right? But that's different from saying like you can't talk about your association with us at all whatsoever to anyone in any circumstance, right? And when it comes to like legal documentation, contracts and stuff like that, they do get really specific um, about how those rules apply. Like in computer program, this is what would be known as like a Boolean. Do they have tables? This would be like Boolean logic, I believe. Yeah, kind of, sort of, maybe. Or like if then logic structures, but it would be like, okay, you have a contract, like, okay, um, you are allowed, it might say something like, you are allowed to talk about your association with Chorus except for the following situations. One, if it is in uh, the promotion of your brand, um, granted that, right? And so you have like, you're already having a qualifier, and that qualifier has a qualifier. Granted that this particular media appearance is a paid promotion or in kind, right? So here's a qualifier, then another qualifier, and then you might go to the next line. Or in these situations like this, and then it might, here's a qualifier, and then it has like a list, like 5 or 6 other situations, and it's like, okay, the wording here is important because they are being really careful about how they're wording things out, but this doesn't mean you can't talk about association whatsoever. They might just be saying like there are some very specific carve out situations where it may be inappropriate or you may need to fill us in on it, right? But there's a important distinction there. And as a journalist, I don't expect your average person to read through contracts and like be able to parse through the way that they're written out. Like they always have like if then statements, and they got like almost like flow charts of how you're supposed to interpret things, right? But if you're a journalist, that is your job, and you're expected to be able to read, especially if you're going to report on it. You're expected to be able to read through those contracts, understand them, and then report them accurately.
clandestine, why do they have a fucking collage of creators?
And what do you want?
I'm here on Ty Corden's behalf.
Then what does he want?
We share a goal: to free Balmorra's people. Ty Corden is ready to rebuild the government.
Unlikely. The old government's in exile. The Empire's too powerful. Ty Corden was talented. Naive, though. Still, exile can change a person. No. The Republic has failed us before. Help me first, then we'll talk.
You appear to have a grudge against the Republic.
They came to help, then abandoned us. Twice. You're different. I'm tracking the Imperial head of manufacture, responsible for building weapons and enslaving my people. He's operating from inside the Okara droid factory. Normally, no problem. But he has a powerful bodyguard. I can't get close. Go to the factory and keep the bodyguard out of the way for me? Then we talk politics.
What kind of resistance can I expect?
I've seen him carry a lightsaber. Be careful. Don't take long. This mission is vital.
Okay, I'll be right back. I'm gonna use the restroom real fast. My God, man, I'm burning up alive today. I don't know if you could tell, like, no, you can't really tell, fortunately. I feel like a little bit balmy because of how warm it is. Hold on. Alright, we're back. Oh my God. It's not even that hot. Where I came from, originally, where I was born and raised, 110 degree plus summer times. And here I am where the temperature, like in my house is, or my apartment's probably like,
that are in the
at most, like maybe the 80s or something. And I'm dying.
program. How the fuck does that
I'm
make
not
any
built
sense?
for that old world anymore.
Did Taylor Lorenz even just like go to the website? How surely she would have seen this, right?
And there is some language that says, hey, please, like, before you make a public statement about what course is, just check with us. The reason for that is
Ah, you see? That's what I said. See, I pre-watched this. No, I'm just kidding. The thing is, like, I've read legal documentation before in the past, and it made so much sense to me that they probably would have a provision like that. And like, if you ever look at a contract for employment when you're getting hired by a job, if you actually go through and you look at what's laid out in there, that's a very like standard issue HR provision in most contracts where you're forming some kind of business relationship with somebody. And most of the time, it almost never comes up, right? But it's there to kind of keep them protected and to have something to point back to instead, in case things like slide off the rails or in case they really need to invoke it. Most of the time, it doesn't really pop up, but it's like like an important it's important stipulation to have to protect your ass. Oh, what's that term? CYA? CYA, cover your ass.
is that, as the article states, there's over 90 influencers in the program, many of whom have very small accounts and joined the program to get like mentorship and happen to be immigrants or
Here's
trans.
your dark money for the day, Hutch. Release the contracts. Do it wired.
Technically, I receive dark money every day when I'm streaming. I don't know where this money's coming from. What if it's coming from the Koch brothers? What if my entire stream are just shadow accounts or sock puppet accounts for the Koch brothers? They're just funneling money to me because they think I actually boost Republicans.
In a red state, right?
I don't know.
Already happen to be kind of in extra danger right now. And so the goal with the like, please check with us clause is to make sure that small creators who already had targets on their back weren't accidentally like featured on a huge page and then suddenly had an onslaught of threats from the right. Of course, has never been kept some nefarious secret, right? People have been talking about it. It was more just, hey, this is.
Or, I mean, to be honest with you, it could just be simply that Chorus wants to protect their own interests, which, like, you might look at that and think that's a bad thing, but like that's literally every organization. That's literally every entity. That's literally like every person that exists out there. If you are an organization that is helping someone else out and you're giving someone else money, right? Why is it bad? Like, why would you not try to protect yourself, right, in your own reputation? Like, that's fair. You shouldn't have to like use your resources help other people out and then forfeit your ability to have some control over your own reputation. Like, imagine me, like, like someone comes up to me and they ask me for help, like, hey man, like I'm falling a little bit behind this month. Do you mind like lending me some money? I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like here, I'll lend you $1,000. Um, I want you to pay it back like over this time period. You know, like $100 a month or some silly like that, whatever, right? But then come to find out that this person's talking shit about me like every day to everybody else, right? And it's like, yeah, like I didn't give you this money with the intention that you have to like toe the line on everything I think and feel, right? But at the same time, like it is fair for me to say, hey, bro, like I'm helping you out. I'm engaged. I'm entering in some kind of agreement with you. Like there is a line where you can cross it, and it's fair for me to say like you're crossing my boundaries. You're being unfair to me, and that's going to affect like the business relationship or whatever that we have going together. That's fair. Why would that not be fair, right? I think part of the issue is that anytime it comes to like a big business or a big organization, there's some people who think like that those things are ipso facto, meaning like just by their very nature they're bad, right? I don't have that perspective. The perspective I have, and I think this is a more robust perspective on power and philosophy and governance in general. This is something that libertarians don't capture well, or conservatives capture well. Liberals maybe, but liberals don't really talk about it. Liberalism, we need stronger liberalism these days. People don't talk about liberalism as an ideology anymore. And on the left, it's like corporations, big business are bad. The way I look at it is power concentration is always precarious. It's not inherently bad. It's not, automatically bad, but it is ripe for abuse. The more power is concentrated in a smaller area, the more attractive it is for people that want to abuse and manipulate that power, and the more like cantilevered it is. It's load. It is power. It is weight out on a ledge. It's over, quote unquote over leveraged, I guess. I'm not really using that term the way it really means, but I think you get my perspective there. So when I look at big organizations, big businesses, stuff like that, I don't necessarily think, oh, these people are evil and corrupt and they're bad and blah, blah, blah. I think to myself, there is a potential there for corruption, and that corruption and abuse can be more dangerous because it's a bigger, more influential organization. But that's only step one. That's just a skepticism phase. I'm not saying I know that they're bad. I'm not saying I know that they're good. I'm just saying, hey, I want to keep my eye on it because there is a lot of power concentrated here. If I were to stop there, that would be intellectually lazy. The mature, honest, critical thinking thing to do after that is to go to the next step and ask yourself, okay, what is the available information that I have to look at to actually assess whether or not this particular organization is acting corrupt or not, right? And libertarians don't tend to do this when it comes to the government. Libertarians always assume power concentration in the government is just bad just because, just because it's the government and the government's bad, right? Some people on the left think power concentration in the private sector is bad because big business, big corporations are bad just by virtue of existing, right? I am kind of in the middle there. I am saying there's a potential there, but you should actually do like a good faith, fair assessment of the particular organization before you rush to conclusion on that.
Is already an unsafe job for some people. Check with us in advance so you don't accidentally add to someone's unsafe.
Hold on. I need to mention something that I'm seeing in the YouTube chat. I'm not gonna get one guide, but I feel like we need to focus on what Billy just said in chat, because that is what's going on right now. I don't know, Billy, I don't know if you're saying this or if you're repeating something that someone else said, but Billy is talking about getting paid to not mention Gaza. This is something that is now that's the narrative in the black pill lefty media space. That's what they're all going with. They're all going with these creators got paid to not talk about Gaza. It's not a small group of people that are making this claim. It's everywhere. In fact, And this is one of the reasons why I'm content to just like nuke any possible bridge with Crystal Ball, who just started following me apparently. What the fuck? I don't know how that happened. This is a retweet from Crystal, where she's reposting current affairs. This is run by that guy, Nathan J. Robinson.
There's an interesting thing that I think I just realized right now about this whole dynamic. To do a little bit of armchair psychologizing here. I think what's going on here, hold on a second, is this like an Archaeopteryx? This thing is fucking cool. What the fuck is this? Look at this thing. That thing's dope. Okay. This kind of ties into what I was saying earlier. A lot of the people on the left, like, Gaza is like the only issue that they're like obsessed with. It becomes like the only thing. It's like their whole identity, their whole political ideology just warps around Gaza. And I think there's a tendency for those people to look around at the landscape and think, I care so much about this issue. This is the most important issue to me. Why doesn't everybody else think it's an important issue? Right? And so they start like rationalizing why that's the case. Oh, because this person hates Muslim people. Oh, because they're corrupted by, you know, the military-industrial complex or the big businesses. Oh, because they're receiving dark money to not talk about it, right? Now, all of those things are possible. They're not necessarily true, but they are possible, right? And in this case, I think they're applying that same lens, which is they're looking at the media landscape of like liberal content creators and some like moderate progressives, some, you know, left-wingers who maybe aren't, you know, 100% aligned with them, and they're looking at them, and rather than them, you know, thinking maybe those people aren't single issue on Gaza because they have a different perspective on what their priorities are, right? Kind of like what I talked about earlier. It must be because they're getting paid off. It must be because they hate Muslims. It must be, you know, X, Y, or Z thing. They can't see that there might actually be like a good faith humanitarian liberal progressive reason why these people aren't having like Gaza be their number one issue. There's a lack there, and this isn't unique. This isn't unique to like the left, right? It's not that the left are the only people who do this. Everybody does this. Everybody does it. Not even outside of politics, everybody does this, which is people have a hard time understanding the actual motivations of people that they don't agree with, right? Now, I'd like to caveat that because there's an alternative error in thinking that people apply. Some people apply like, if you disagree with me, it must be because of like a malicious evil intent, or your bad faith, or you're stupid, or whatever, right? That's one extreme. The other extreme people go is like the Hanlon's razor extreme, which is you start trying to rationalize a good, compelling, sweet, innocent reason why a person might disagree with you, right? And I see this a lot with like people who, especially a lot of enlightened centrists, rationalize everything that the Republicans on the right do, even though the Republicans, like, they talk like and they act like demons to other people. But you'll have some people who come out, well, you know, actually what they really meant was this, and what if they meant this? And it's funny because sometimes they'll say all that, and then the right-wing MAGA person will come back and be like, no, I didn't mean it that way. I think, you know, this, and they say like a more extreme thing. And it's funny because the person that was trying to rationalize it, they were like, they could only conceive of that person having like the most rosy, positive, you know, sweet, Care Bear, innocent perspective, right? And these are like the two extremes. And what you should really do if you're like a good critical thinker is Occam's razor, right? The most likely explanation. Look at the available evidence. Don't assume that someone's nefarious. But also don't assume that they're just good-natured just because you want to think that, because you're wishful thinking, right? You're either applying like a negativity bias or you're applying like wishful thinking. What you really should be doing is looking at it realistically and going, okay, maybe this person is somewhere in the middle, but also maybe they are on this extreme, or maybe they are on that extreme. They could be anywhere within that range of possibility. I think part of the issue is that people want an easy explanation. They want an easy rule of thumb that they could just apply to everything, rather than doing the hard work of actually having to assess each instance case by case. That takes time. Sometimes you don't always get like the clearest answers if you do it that way because you don't have all the evidence in front of you. But that is like the most realistic and honest way to actually assess those things.
Guy, and he's retweeting the Taylor Lorenz story, or quote posting it, and he says this helps explain why some of the most popular progressive content creators refuse to ever cover Gaza, with the obvious implication being that this program was prohibiting people from speaking about Gaza. That seems like the obvious inference, right? I'm not just making that up, right? You guys tell me. You guys tell me. Seems like the obvious inference here, right? I don't know what this article is from, but the article says the decision to avoid Palestine by democratic aligned media seems to be deliberate and goes beyond Midas Touch. Midas Touch is part of a broader universe of content creators that are aligned with the Democratic Party, which include Brian Tyler Cohen and David Pakman, among others. Notably, last March, according to a source with the events, Pakman attended a private off-the-record meeting with Kamala Harris on the day of Joe Biden's State of the Union address. During the trip, he met with Cohen, the Meiselas brothers, and dozens of other so-called independent progressive media figures. In an internal email, Pakman later told his staff that the content creators at the White House had talked among themselves, and everyone had admitted that they deliberately avoid producing Gaza coverage in order to prevent controversy. One could argue that this is probably a big reason why these particular influences were invited to the White House in the first place. Pakman, for his part, previously asserted that Israel would never waste ordnance on Palestinian civilians, and that he views Congressman Richie Torres, who is...
And by the way, like, this might be true without it having to be a conspiracy. It might just be the case that David Pakman, Brian Tyler Cohen, already have that perspective. Like, they don't think that it is the most politically effective issue to focus on, and or they may have thought at that time that the evidence was insufficient to make the more extreme claims that, it was a genocide or whatever, right? They may have just genuinely held that position, and it's possible that just naturally, they were more in line with the mainstream Democratic position at that time, right? Now, and I say this too because I have been kind of that perspective to a certain extent. Like, my perspective on it has been, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for the United States to have supported Israel during that time period, but with the caveat that I wanted the Democratic politicians to, at the very least, put I'm gonna die here. Put conditionals on support. So like, hey, and it's a good way to coerce behavior, right? Like, hey, if we want Israel to be more humanitarian with the way that they go after Hamas without, targeting civilians and stuff, we can say, hey, look, hey, we got all this like great military equipment for you to go after Hamas, but if you want to use our military equipment, you're going to have to agree with us to taking measures to mitigate civilian casualties, right? That's very realistic, pragmatic, and strategic foreign policy, right? Now, back before the election, that was my impression of what the Democrats were largely doing. Does it mean they were 100% effective at it? Does it mean they were like doing everything we want? No, but like, you live in a pluralistic country where you have to negotiate with Republicans to pass bills and stuff like that. I thought the Democrats were doing a pretty good job with the cards that they had to rein Netanyahu in to a certain extent. Now, after the election, because of the leeway that Trump gave to Netanyahu and kind of the pressuring that he gave to Netanyahu to be aggressive, to be, inhumane and sadistic and stuff, to try to help kind of push this right-wing nationalist movement, that kind of relies on like this behavior of like acting tough and whatnot. After the election, after that happens, my opinion has shifted on it because I'm like the facts on the ground, the behavior has changed now because like the whole board has changed. And so now at this point, I'm much more critical of what the Israelis are doing. And it does make me wonder, and it's really sad that it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder if that the reason why Netanyahu's regime is so willing to be more brutal now. I mean, honestly, I don't even think it's speculative. I think all of the evidence points in this direction. I think it's a pretty obvious conclusion at this point. The reason why Netanyahu's regime is able to be as extreme as they are now and feel comfortable doing that is because now they think they have an American president who's willing to support them behaving that way. And that's unfortunate because it didn't have to be this way. We, through our electoral choices, kind of made that more of a reality. Because the reality is, whether people want to believe or acknowledge it or not, whether they like it or not, the reality is you always will be voting for the lesser of two evils. That's just part of growing up, being an adult, and being honest with yourself, and being strategic with your voting, being realistic with it, not being, you should be ideological in the sense of your ideology is the goal, the end goal that you have, but you should filter it through the pragmatism of how do you actually get to that point. I think that's a lot of times the big disconnect between kind of your more liberal, progressive, but like more moderate progressive, and like your left wing kind of more further, more radical progressive wing. I don't even really like calling them progressive because me growing up, the left and progressives, they were distinct ideologies. I think that the terminology has been conflated over the years by the right, and now you have a lot of people on the left who, not even left, but like on the liberal left, progressive end of the spectrum, who have bought into that conflation of terminology. And because they bought into that conflation of terminology, they themselves don't realize that there are disagreements within, everything left of center, that we're not all left wing. Some of us are more progressive. Some of us are more like centrist moderate liberals. And there are differences there. We're not all the left, right? And progressivism, leftists aren't really the same thing, right? The way I like to think about it is your democratic socialists, people who want to transition to socialism, are the left. And they also have a tendency to see and analyze things through the lens of oppressor-oppressee dynamics, right? Which, me personally, I think that lens is a useful lens. I just don't think it's the only lens. I don't think it explains every situation well. So you have that group, and then you have the progressives, like actual progressives. Actual progressives are sock Dems. They're social democrats. They don't want to transition to socialism. They just want a hybrid economic model, basically the modern hybrid economic model that you see all around the world, right? And they don't want to really go further beyond that. They're fine with that model. And those progressives tend to see the world, yes, they do incorporate the idea of oppressor versus oppressee dynamics. They also incorporate intersectionality, but there's more to it than that. Those aren't the only two lenses through which they see the world. They balance those things with other analysis that they do. That's the way I see the distinction, the divide there.
Perhaps best known for being one of AIPAC's top recipients of funding as the kind of person.
I'm going to carry on a little bit more here, but I'm going to be honest with you, I feel a little bit, I feel hot, I feel uncomfortable because of how warm it is today, and I feel a little bit like my allergies are acting up, so I'm honestly feeling a little bit miserable right now, not in like a coming down with like a flu or a cold thing or anything, but I'm just not feeling it, so I'm going to go a little bit further, get to like a good stopping point in this video, and then I'm going to call it a night.
Who he would like to see lead the progressive movement. So this little caption here, which, I mean, we can get into this. This really, I don't think is all that complicated. The issue of Gaza is so toxic. Like, you have to be someone who doesn't mind the toxicity. Like, I don't really mind the toxicity.
I feel like I do a good job oftentimes of like threading the needle between these groups. There's a way to talk about these things that's nuanced, that's fair, that's I think like your average moderate person can actually grab onto. But I just think that most people don't know in the media sphere how to thread that needle. You're either on the left wing end where you're alienating like moderates and centrists and liberals, or you're on like the centrist moderate end where you're alienating the left. And I feel like I have a lot of friends who are leftists, and I have a lot of friends, or maybe I call them more acquaintances, who are like more moderate, centrist, more normie. I even have people I know that follow me and pay attention to the things I talk about, and even though they disagree with me, they seem like they at least try to engage with what I'm saying in good faith, who are conservative. And so I think there's a way to talk about these things that you can actually reach all these different groups, but it comes down to how you frame it, how you message it. And just we haven't been very good on our side about doing that for a long time now. That's where I come in, right?
To be honest with you. And so, I was talking about Gaza and Israel like every day for fucking months when that conflict kicked off. Still talk about Gaza pretty regularly.
Yeah, but I mean, you have a weird mustache, so I mean, does it really matter? No, I'm just kidding. I've never really been a big fan of mustaches. Mustaches have like come back into style recently. I'm looking for the day when they fade back out of style. Or at the very least, I always think like a mustache by itself to me always look kind of weird. Now, granted, I'm being a little bit nitpicky and rude here because the reality is that as a liberal, I think that people should be able to dress and behave the way that they want as long as they're not hurting other people while doing it. I'm just being a little petty here. But yeah, I mean, in my personal perspective, my personal aesthetics, if you're going to rock the beard, to me, the best way is you don't want it to get too volumetric in the sense that you don't want it to come out this, this thick. So you want to keep it like kind of trimmed or not trimmed, but what's the word I'm looking for? Like, not that you're tapering it, but you're keeping it at a reasonable thickness. Okay? And then if you pair it with like a goatee or like a little bit of like a stubble or a beard, like it blends in nicely. When you have it just by itself, it can look a little bit weird. Now, alternatively, you can have a big, thick, bushy one, but then you almost have to pair that with a big, bushy beard too as well to kind of complete that look. That's a very specific look. You're going for like wizard Gandalf, heavy metal vibes at that point. That's a whole subgenre. You know what I mean?
We're kind of circling the drain in a lot of ways. I don't think their minds can comprehend the idea that they themselves have made the topic of Gaza so toxic that it would
Yeah, so he's basically saying what I was trying to say here. I agree with him so much on this point, and I haven't heard anyone else kind of mention this point. And I think it's a good point to bring up. I really appreciate him saying this. I think he's super spot on here.
Incentivize other creators from covering the subject. Look what happens if anyone talks about Gaza but deviates from any of the established orthodoxy over there. If you agree with them that Palestinians deserve their own state, but it should be a two-state solution, if you think they're doing war crimes but are uncomfortable calling it a genocide, if you...
Oh my god, I have not agreed with someone more on this topic before. It's refreshing to hear. He's so right about this. I never get this when I talk to like the people who are like very obsessive about the Gaza thing. Is a lot of times they want a one-state solution, and I don't understand why. It's like for so many reasons, is a two-state solution like more viable, more preferable, at least for the time being? Like maybe come back to me in like 300 years or something, but like the way it is right now, a one-state solution just does not make sense. It just doesn't seem viable at all, right? Unless you're kicking one group entirely out or you're letting one group get oppressed by the other group. It seems like you can only really realistically do it through a two-state solution. And I don't get why the people who are like super pro-Palestinian, I don't get why that's an issue for them. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like a pretty pro-Palestinian position to be for a two-state solution, but they act like it has to be a one-state solution or bust. I don't get that. I don't know what the rationale there is.
You think that Netanyahu belongs in jail for?
And this point too, like I've said it consistently, I don't like Netanyahu. I don't like his coalition. I think that they are extreme. I think they are far right. I don't put it past them to demonize, to dehumanize, to oppress, to brutalize, to kill indiscriminately Arabs. I don't put it past them, right? But that is not the entire Israeli society. Nor is that necessarily what the government has actually been doing, right? And there is a nuanced distinction between their government engaging in war crimes, mistreating the civilians of Gaza versus an actual genocide. Those aren't the same thing. A genocide is like a systematic, attempt to like extinguish a racial group or ethnic group from the face of the planet, right? Which is a little bit different from a ethnic cleansing. And ethnic cleansing just means like from a particular area you want those people out, and you're either getting them out either through death or maybe just having them relocated. These things, sometimes there's overlap there. These things, they're all potentially bad, right? But there's a huge difference between ethnic cleansing and literally genocide, right? And if you just keep repeating genocide, genocide, genocide over and over again, there's a lot of people that are going to look at you like you don't want to engage in the nuance or be realistic or pragmatic or honest about this conversation. And I don't know why the left feels the need to do that, because they could be rhetorically effective and get a lot of people to agree with them and be relatable and build up like coalition support if they just actually appealed to the nuance there, talking about like an actual realistic two-state solution, or being specific about it being like an ethnic cleansing, or that there were the X, Y, and Z war crimes, right? But that doesn't mean that, Israel's actually in a genocide, or that all Israeli people are evil, or whatever. Like, I don't know why that's the hill they want to die on. I don't even know why that, it shouldn't even be like, it shouldn't even be in conflict with like their overarching understanding, narrative, goal for that issue. I don't understand why there's a conflict there for them. It's almost like they bought into that specific talking point, narrative, position as part of their group ecosystem. And so now at this point, and because they've doubled down on it so much, and because they've taken up so many fights with so many different groups, it's almost like they feel like they have to clutch onto and circle their wagons around that particular narrative as like a defensive mechanism at this point.
War crimes, but you also condemn Hamas. They will rip you to shreds. They will fucking rip you to shreds. We've seen them do it 1,000 times. Where is this orthodoxy established? It's established through bigger content creators. You have like the bigger content creators in the space, and they set the standards. They push one particular interpretation of things, or analysis, or prescriptive analysis, and anybody that deviates from that, they call them like, they'll go in your mentions and they'll just start lying about you and saying stuff like you want Palestinian kids to be killed or whatever. They'll do that. They will do that to you over and over and over again. So is it any wonder that there are creators in left-wing politics that don't want to cover that? And then also, if you're a creator and you're invested in helping Democrats win a...
Here's another thing about all that too, right? And this applies to like anytime someone just starts screaming and yelling at, you're a communist, you're a fascist, you're just it's a genocide, you're a genocide supporter. When you're going to invoke those really, really extreme, charged claims, you can do that. It's not necessarily bad to do that. It's not necessarily in bad form. It's not necessarily like bad rhetoric to do that. But you can't just scream it out and expect it to be convincing. You have to earn with the audience the credibility to make that claim. So if you're going to, for example, say like, oh, Trump and the Trump administration, they're all fascists. These are fascists. You're a fascist and everything. It's like a lot of people just zone you out. You need to actually explain why, like give actual examples of like, hey, they're violating due process. They're authoritarian nationalists. That is what fascism is. These people are acting like fascists, right? Compare that to me just going, they're a fascist and you support fascists and you're fascist people. Like, which one is more convincing? Which one makes you like tune out? I think it's pretty clear, right? And so if you want to go around, you want to like scream genocide, 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 like you need to actually establish that with the audience first to have any credibility. Otherwise, yes, you do sound crazy. You do sound silly, but like you don't have to. If you have a compelling point to make about the genocide, I don't know if I even agree with you. I'm just giving you like rhetorical advice here. You have to earn that. You have to actually establish and explain why that very extreme claim is warranted. You can't just scream it out and expect everybody to just agree with you. It would be like me saying, I don't know, I am the fastest runner in the history of mankind, right? It sounds so silly, like we don't even take it remotely seriously, right? And we shouldn't. But I mean, yeah, no one's going to take it seriously because like what do I have to show to actually validate that claim is true? Versus me saying like, oh yeah, I own a Sony A7R2. There's no reason for anyone to doubt that. That's not like an extreme claim or anything. It's just a camera, right? But if I'm going to say something that is extreme, I'm going to make an extreme claim, I do need to actually provide something to make people actually believe that what I'm saying isn't just me like saying shit.
Elections, kind of makes sense that you would avoid the most incendiary, divisive issue in the entire country. But even still, guys, like, it's not exactly, like, it's still divisive. American voters are kind of hard to pin down one way or the other sometimes. Let me see if I can find... Let me show you guys something. There's a recent Harvard-Harris poll about Israel and Gaza. Even within the Democratic Party, this is according to the Harvard-Harris poll.
Americans are weird and stupid because before he even reads this poll, I'm going to guess what it says. I'm going to guess that it says that Americans, a majority of Americans agree that U.S. support for, how would I do this? They're gonna contradict themselves. They do this a lot in a lot of different issues. It really kind of depends. A lot of people don't have very strong knowledge bases for these issues or strongly formed like positions or opinions, and it's easy to get like contradictory answers out of them based on just the question that you ask. So I bet you the Americans are going to say something like there might be a question like, has Israel gone too far with how they're treating the Palestinians? And most Americans are probably going to answer yes. And then another question is going to be something like, should the U.S. support Israel in its fight against Hamas? And Americans are going to say yes to that too, right? And these things are like seemingly contradictory, but it's because the American voter doesn't really understand how they're contradictory. They just both kind of sound like common narratives that they've heard, and so to them, without them knowing and having a strong opinion, they're kind of just deferring to the popular kind of position that the rest of the population seems to have.
Again, U.S. voters, we don't necessarily make sense all of the time.
Oh yeah, see, exactly.
Sometimes we hold positions that seem and kind of, quite frankly, are contradictory.
I pre-watched. I did not pre-watch. You see this a lot with polling on Americans on issues. It's crazy. It's insane. Americans will say shit like when you ask them like, oh, should we have universal health care? Oh, yes, we should. And then you ask them like the next question like, okay, would you support universal health care of this form? And they're like, no. And it's like, okay, well, like, what is it? And basically what they want is magic. They want everything for free. They want everything without like any of the pros and cons that are associated with it.
Get back, Jedi. I'm apprentice to Darth Lacris, Vice President of Balmorra, and this man is under my protection.
You know this isn't the life you should be leading.
Don't try to confuse me. My path is clear. My family has always lived here, watching Republic interference hold Balmorra back. But Darth Lacris can lead us to glory.
The Empire has enslaved families across Balmorra. Did Darth Lacris spare yours?
Serving the Empire is a privilege. I am proud they have the chance.
You're young and strong. Defy Darth Lacris and help the people you love.
Never mind this Jedi preaching. Ceres, kill her!
No, I need time to think on this. I will stand aside for you, Jedi. Find another way to help my people.
You'll pay for that, Jedi! Your drivel just cost Darth Lacris an apprentice, and I'll be blamed! Whatever you came for, I'll never...
The bleeding is moderate, but you need treatment at once.
Jedi, good work distracting the bodyguard. Allow me to find a position.
Missed my shot. Step back, please. I need him dead.
You will not commit murder in front of me.
This is war. He's the enemy.
This man enslaves Balmorrans, so he dies.
No. He's a wounded captive and must be treated fairly.
Jedi foolishness. Okay. I will send men to capture him. I found a safe house where Ty and his colleagues can gather. My people are smuggling in there now.
This is it. I'll go on ahead. I hear Ty's plan.
I explained this before, but basically, this character, she's like the Superman of my characters. She is the Boy Scout or Girl Scout archetype, right? The super morally pure version, the one that I wouldn't even commit myself to it, right? Where she's always taking the like, oh, we shouldn't kill anybody. We have to do this the most, morally pure way kind of position. I try to, when I play these characters, actually give them distinct like personalities and belief systems. So it's not really necessarily reflective of what I would do, but it is reflective of like this character. She is the Jedi Consular archetype. She's supposed to be like the most ideal version of like the moral character of a Jedi and their code.
What percentage of Democrats call it a genocide? It's like a really big number, right? Is it 90%? Is it 80%?
You might wind up with something silly like, a large portion of the Democrats think it's a genocide, and then the next question you ask is, should the U.S. keep supporting Israel? And then they'll say yes to that too, right? Because they don't really understand the context, don't really understand the issues. They themselves don't have strong opinions. They might waffle back and forth like, I haven't really thought about it too much. Well, when you put it that way, like, they have internal conflict because most people, if you're watching and you're watching for the political stuff here, you are unique. You need to understand that. Like, you have to understand the average person in public does not think about politics like the way that you do as much as you do. They don't have fully fleshed out, fully formed understandings of politics. It took me a while for me to understand and come to terms with that. And once you understand that, a lot of like the seeming contradictions and the disappointments you have over where the general public is makes more sense.
I think it's like 92% of the Democratic Party are calling it a genocide. I could be wrong about that. It could be closer to like 70%. Anyways, it's a big majority. The big majority of Democrats. But according to Harvard Harris, which they're a reputable pollster, and they've been releasing polling on Israel Gaza with good deal of frequency for the last 2 years, right? And even with Democrats, guys, 54% of Democrats think that Israel right now should just make a deal with Hamas and end the conflict. But 46% of Democrats say that they should only make a deal if Hamas leaves Gaza. That's pretty divisive. And if you're a content creator and your number one goal is to like help Democrats win elections, kind of makes sense why you avoid particular topics. Anyways, there's a few different reasons why people would avoid that topic. But you guys tell me if I'm crazy, okay? Because is the inference of this current affairs quote post, is it not reasonable to infer that he's saying that maybe these people are getting paid to not cover Gaza? Or maybe these people are prohibited from covering Gaza by Chorus? If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Tell me. Okay. That's not the inference? Well, what's the inference? This helps explain why some of the most popular progressive content creators refuse to ever cover Gaza. What other inference is there here? I'm sorry, I totally disagree with you. What do you think? What do you think it is? What do you think it's explaining? It's that people don't cover Gaza or are specifically getting paid? What do you? Okay, Katie, hang on a second, Katie. Then how is the inference not that these creators have a financial, like a financial interest in not covering Gaza because they're being paid by this group? I feel like you got to my point in a roundabout way. I'm gonna get one guide here. I think you're completely off base. I think that's the obvious inference. But that's what they're going with. I don't know. That's and you know, it's just it is extremely disappointing, by the way, to see other lefty content creators that are jumping all over this. Like,
okay, yeah, he's not picking his nose, but I've never seen anybody do this gesture before. All right. Well, anyways, I mean, it's getting kind of late. I got work in the morning. I feel like too warm and hot and kind of miserable with allergies right now, so I'm gonna call it a night. Again, okay, I know I've been saying this. When I move, things will kind of, you know, get back into our normal groove. I want to get into a more normal streaming schedule and start putting out, you know, content more regularly. I'm actually thinking about splitting my channel here. Because initially I wasn't trying to do a politics channel. I did see that there was a lot of interest for that, and I know I kind of excel at that. So I've been debating whether or not this channel I'm going to keep as the politics channel, and then the other channel will be just kind of like your more casual movie, video game, like React channel, or the other way around. So I'll think about it a little bit more. I think a lot of you joined for the politics, so I'm kind of leaning that direction now. But if I do so, I'll probably rebrand it a little bit. And then maintain this branding, like the logo and stuff like that, for the React channel. But anyways, I'll catch you guys next time. You know, we'll see about maybe finishing out this video, but there's other stuff. Oh, I do really want to get to this Patrick David debate. I'm curious about this. At a glance, I would think I don't really agree with any of these people because I'm not anti-capitalist. I'm not like super pro-capitalist, but I'm not like ideologically committed to any economic system really. So, and that's why, I mean, I'm not going to be like a hardcore, like, oh, you have to do like capitalism, even if it's not working out for people. And I'm also not going to be like, you know, burn it all down, let's have socialism, you know. I probably disagree with everybody on this one, but I definitely dislike PVD quite a lot because it's not just the hardcore kind of right-wing, I don't even know if it would be laissez-faire capitalism, but this like pro-corporate capitalism stuff. There's a lot more to them that I dislike as well, but we'll get to that at a different time. Catch you guys later. Okay, have a good week. Okay, don't get too hot or exhausted out there. Keep yourself hydrated. Wear your sunscreen. Do all those things. All right.